I grew up in the business. My father was an assistant director, production manager. In the very, very early days, he was an actor. So I just sort of naturally took the motion picture business for granted. I never thought about being part of it. We lived blocks away from Fox Studios, where my father worked, and I used to climb over the fence, which is now Century City, and play in the back lot of Fox. My father got me extra jobs where they needed kids, and I'd make, I don't know, $6 or whatever it was, and it seemed gravy to me. And I began to realize that that it was a fairly easy way to make money. I didn't aspire to being a great actor or anything like that. And then the war came along, and I enlisted in the Coast Guard, and had a rather bad accident after being in the Coast Guard for about a year and a half, and spent several months in the Long Beach Naval Hospital, and they finally tossed me out. And so here I was, a civilian again, in the middle of a war, without a job. And so I just sort of naturally went back to acting. It seemed easy. And the more I did it, the more I kind of didn't like it. I think I was growing up and beginning to say, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I moved in with this very attractive lady who was an aspiring actress and was making a little bit of a splash in the film business, on the cover of Life and things like that. And she did a radio program and asked me, was foolish enough to ask me what I thought of it, and I criticized it, as is my wont. And her response was, well, you know, if you're so smart, why don't you do, you know, get off your ass and do something as good. So I did. I copied her radio show, and she took it to the man who produced it, who was also an agent, a man named Nat Wolff. And he thought it was terrific, and my radio career was off and running. I was taken by my new agent, Nat Wolff, to meet Dick Powell, who was looking for a new radio series. He said, do you have anything that would faintly resemble a singing private detective? And I said, sure. Said, I live at the beach, so I can't give it to you until tomorrow, but I'll bring it in tomorrow and you can read it. So I spent all night writing it, and brought it in the next day, and it became a series called Richard Diamond, Private Detective. And then I was really off and running. My radio career lasted quite a while. I was making big money, spending it as fast as I made it. And I began to do television, and still occasionally acted for the fun of it. And then I got a call from a friend who was a man named Dick Quine, Richard Quine. And he said, you want to write a movie with me, you know, for me? And I said, sure. So he and I joined up. We began writing program films, B films. We wrote a whole bunch of them, and he directed them. Then he moved up. I took his place. I began to be the Richard Quine of Columbia. And then I branched off. I got lucky and got good assignments, and I would say that the first one that really kind of propelled me into the spotlight, so to speak, was Operation Petticoat with Cary Grant. He and I locked horns, and fought our way through Operation Petticoat. To this day, because he was the producer, I don't know why he didn't can my ass early on, but I somehow was lucky enough to get through it, and it was a good movie and did very well, particularly for Cary, who owned most of it. And my career just sort of progressed, took off from Petticoat to Breakfast at Tiffany's, to Days of Wine and Roses, and so on up till now. I haven't done anything since the Broadway version of Victor Victoria, but I'm planning it.